When it comes to magic in Berserk, the four kings of the world are about as magical as things get. For a series that avoided delving into Arcana for nearly 200 chapters, over 200 if you count the prelude chapters, it sure decided to introduce magic with a punch. Reference very much intended. We go from having only Guts' sword and Puck's elf dust as the Black Swordsman party's Hail Marys, to invocation circles and fiery daggers and flying cloaks and you name it. But perhaps the best way to introduce you to Berserk's magic is by introducing you to its sources, and those would be the four kings of the world. These absolutely gargantuan astral creatures each oversee an essential element of existence, and together they form the holy quadrumvirate of magical elementals in Berserk. They're so powerful that even the magic-denying Holy See has record of their existence, and they might just be the only things capable of standing up to the God Hand. So, without further ado, let's dive into it. These are the four kings of the world explained. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means an awful lot. Thank you. Let's begin. They're the guys who are responsible for elemental magic. What are the four kings of the world? Like we said in our intro, for a long time, the only magical things in Berserk were the Apostles, the God Hand, Puck, and Guts' Dragon Slayer. But after the conclusion of the Conviction arc, Kentaro Miura decided that it was finally time to bring in some magic to his world, and so he debuted the character of Shirkei, a badass 9-ish-year-old girl who can school most adults in both magic and combat. Shirkei was earmarked to join the Black Swordsman party as their resident mage ever since she showed up to save them from trolls that one time, but she also is our source for a lot of magical exposition as well. Despite her extremely young age, Shirkei is one of the best magic users in the series. It's not an exaggeration to say that her knowledge of the astral world and its inner workings is rivaled only by her teacher Flora and the great gurus of Elfhelm, so it only makes sense that she would be the one to both explain elemental magic to us and show us the four kings who rule over them. Chapter 203 might as well have been titled Magic 101, because this is where we learn a lot about Arcana in Berserk. Besides learning about the Brand of Sacrifice seal and the fact that silver is actually useful against astral creatures of all kinds, we also get a breakdown of how elemental magic works in Kentaro Miura's world. The four states that are inherent to our world, solid, liquid, vapor, and energy, are all resonant with the workings of elementals that exist within the astral world. These elementals represent forces of earth, water, wind, and fire in correspondence with the state they influence, and they're the reason that those things are perceived by humanity the way they are. For example, an elf doesn't fly because it has wings. Those wings work because of the wind elementals, who are present throughout the atmosphere. Elves manipulate those elementals to aid in their flight. It's also possible that elves do this subconsciously, especially pixies like Puck and Ivalira, since they're supposed to be descendants of wind elementals, but you get the general idea. Water flows because of undines, flames rage in volcanoes and campfires because of salamanders, the earth forms and crumbles because of gnomes, and the wind blows thanks to little cuties called sylphs, whom Puck immediately tries to organize into an army after learning his own connection to them. If you want to use weapons bestowed with the blessings of the elementals, you better develop a good relationship with them before and thank them for their service after, because that's how it works. That's why Serpico's power with the Sylph Sword and the Sylph Cloak increases with every use, because he's a good boy who knows when to be humble. But no amount of thank yous can make an elemental power match that of an elemental king, and that's because they are the astral embodiments of those concepts of matter. In chapter 209, Shirkei summons the four kings of the world for the first time in the manga, and it is truly a spectacle to behold. She casts her luminous body into the astral world and calls forth from the empty space the representations of the land, the sea, the sky, and fire. The blessed king of the east is the ruler of the winds and the sylphs. She says his spirit rises over the mountains like a zephyr, and his golden raiment, which looks like a massive sylph cloak, gleams like it's the sun itself. The king of the west is the ruler of water and the undines. His presence is so awe-inspiring that even the water spirits he rules over caper underneath his glory. The king of the south is the ruler of fire and the salamanders. Its majesty is as brilliant as the blazing inferno that is its everlasting flame. And finally, the blessed king of the north, the ruler of the land and gnomes, thanks to whom all living beings have an earth to walk upon. upon. Shirke summons the four kings of the world as part of a magical bulwark she was raising around Enoch Village's church. She explains to the local priest, who was trying to kill her to stop her heresy by the way, that the four kings are great beings who exist in the astral world and love and protect humanity. The formation of the four kings is a ritual to summon their strength to a mage's designated location, marked by talismans, in order to ward off evil astral creatures. As long as Shirke keeps the formation going, no evil astral entity could enter within its borders, which was proven by the trolls being incinerated as soon as the formation was manifested. The four kings didn't just protect human beings from trolls and their kind, they also show their love by healing all humans present within the formation, irrespective of age, injury, or spiritual alignment. The formation of the four is one of the most basic spells that a mage can learn in Berserk, but because of its absolute power, mastering it could take a novice up to a year. Farnace only learns it as rapidly as she does because she picks up magic as part of combat survival, and is also pretty much a blank slate when she does it as well. The formation of the four is invoked a few times in Berserk, such as when the Black Swordsman party enters Kliphof on the Seahorse when they're facing off against the Sea God, and twice at Elfhelm. The first time is a demonstration of Farnace's seemingly boundless potential as a mage. The second time is more tragic, as it takes place just as Skellig Island begins to drown. Each time, the four kings of the world work their magic as intended. Their power can outright incinerate evil and purely astral creatures. When it comes to beings that still had a shred of the physical world remaining to them, their bulwark could slow down its approach. The formation was completely useless against purely physical beings and objects, but since its primary invocation involved warding off evil spiritual creatures, we'd say it works perfectly each time it is invoked. But that's the explanation for the elemental magic aspect of the four kings. Let's take a look at how they're tied into the very fabric of some of Berserk's leading mysteries. They are the guardian angels of mankind, but what is their actual purpose? The role of the four kings of the world in Berserk's endgame. It's clear that the four elemental kings are amongst the strongest astral beings to exist in the world of Berserk. Their power is simply undeniable and all-pervasive because they reside within the states of matter that make up existence itself. But the symbolic and spiritual role of the four kings seems to go deeper than simply being faceless benign protectors of mankind. In the same chapter where she invokes the four kings for the first time, Shirke tells Enoch Village's fanatical priest that these almighty beings are the same cardinal angels described in the Holy See's scriptures. Now, because the Holy See is pretty much a copy-paste of the real-world Catholic Church, that would make the four kings the equivalent of the archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel in the world of Berserk. But here's where things start getting muddy, and it has a lot to do with something that happened before the four kings debut and well after it. In chapter 53, all the way back before even the eclipse had taken place, we heard about a little something known as the fairy tale of the Skull King. This tale was based on the real life of Supreme King Geiserik, the only human being to have ever created a continent-wide empire for mankind. Geiserik's empire existed 1,000 years ago, back when the astral and physical worlds were more in tune with each other and the Holy See hadn't been born yet. Or even if it had, it wasn't the all-powerful religious force it is in Berserk's current timeline. The fairy tale of the Skull King states that when the titular Skull King's empire devolved into debauchery and gluttony, God sent 5 angels down to Earth to destroy his capital of sin and liberate mankind. Wait, did we say 5? It might have been 4, because this is where the confusion begins. Judo, the man relaying this tale to us, states that God sent 5 angels to smite Geiserik's empire, but Casca immediately questions him about his claim, asking if the number wasn't 4. At the time, it wasn't clear why this was so important, but as the story has progressed, so has our understanding of this dispute and the context surrounding it, which in turn only leaves us with more questions. Casca was most likely born in a midland village, and must have grown up practicing the faith of the Holy See. If this assumption is correct, then her statement regarding the 4 cardinal angels makes sense, because, as Shirke points out, the Holy See's cardinal angels are actually the 4 kings of the world. But then we learn of a mysterious priest from Geiserik's era who proclaimed the king's sins to God from his prison cell in the Tower of Conviction and was answered by an angel as well. And then we get what are seemingly the final moments of King Geiserik's life as a human in chapter 362, and everything becomes even more muddled because we see the void there, as most of the fandom had guessed we would, but we also see 4 other demon angel entities who have not not been seen or explained since their first appearance. Some people think that these are a prototype version of the God Hand, but there are others who think that these are the four kings of the world. And to be perfectly honest, these claims are not entirely baseless. When talking about the God Hand and its grand plan, series creator Kentaro Miura stated that the key to understanding this mystery is Void. Now, he could just be talking about Void the character, and that in and of itself would hold true. But what if he's talking about a philosophical concept? The Godai school of thought is very relevant to Berserk, as it is what Miura seems to have used as his base for his magic system. Godai philosophy doesn't exactly describe elementals in terms of effects. Its elementals are the inherent states of matter. You guys recall what Shirkei described the elementals as? If you do, then you know where we're going with this. The Holy See states that the four kings of the world are the cardinal angels who protect and guide mankind. The reason they are remembered from King Geiseric's era is because they were likely summoned at the time of the Empire's downfall. Chapter 362 seems to suggest that they joined up with Void, because in Godai philosophy, void or emptiness forms the fifth element besides solid, liquid, vapor, and energy. But that wouldn't line up with their previous appearances as protectors and lovers of mankind. The four beings that appear in Chapter 362 clearly look like vessels of evil, so it's possible there's some other kind of astral entity entirely. But at the same time, we can't say that with certainty, and that's why the four kings are so important to Berserk's endgame. Kentaro Miura has often stated that Berserk is a 1,000-year-old story, and the key to understanding how its present will play out lies in uncovering Berserk's past. If we can understand just why the four kings of the world are related to the Holy See and every tale about the fall of Geiseric's empire, we'd be able to predict what will happen in Falconia, which is literally Geiseric's fallen capital city raised back to life. One thing is clear though, the four kings who have remained faceless so far will get more defined identities and motivations as the series reaches its conclusion. So until then, you guys can keep yourselves updated on them with this video right here. Marvelous verdict. But for now, that's it for this one. The four kings of the world are one of those overpowered existences whose allegiance cannot be quantified in simple terms of good and bad. And that is what makes them so typically Berserk. Their absolute power and authority over their own domains is unquestionable, but their enigmatic nature keeps the intrigue around their characters intact. What do you think the role of the four kings of the world will be in the endgame of Berserk? Let us know in the comments section down below, and we'll see you guys in the next one.